Hello and welcome to Latexworkshops, tutorial number 4. Last time we made some knickers, which was the beginning of flat pattern making. That is simply taking measurements from our bodies and transferring them onto some paper. Now we're going to go a little bit further and we're going to make a pattern for a vest. I think it's a good idea, if you've got a vest, to wear one now so you can see the measurements on the paper, how they relate to your measurements on your body. It's always good to get accurate measurements, and the best way to do that is to have a horizontal line. So I'm just going to put a bit of string around my waist. I'm just standing in front of a mirror. If you have a friend to help you, so much the better. So now you can take your measurements and they won't be askew. It's quite easy to get a centimetre out here and there, which will make a bit of a difference. So we need to take a measurement of we need to start from the top, which is for our front and back panel, basically the nape, which is the top of your spine. So we need to take the width of your shoulder seam, which is the inner width is from here to here, and we also need to take your bust line. For women it's the under bust line, your waistline and your upper hip. The heights we need to take from the shoulder seam down to our bust line, to our waistline, to our upper hip line. So once you have all the measurements, and I have them all ready for you, we just get our paper and then we arbitrarily mark a point on the top and mark the shoulder lines. So the measurements were 20 centimetres apart, so it's 10 centimetres either side of the line. So I'm just making a little note of them. From the top down to our centre point, which is on the bust line, it was 28 centimetres. So just marking down 28 centimetres. So this is going to be our centre point. There we go. Whenever you do anything, it's always a good idea to mark what you're doing, when you're doing it, what it is, the measurements, as much information as you feel necessary, because then you can measure your progress, and if you ever have any doubts, you think, what was that? You know exactly where you are. So our bust line was 50, which means 25 either side. So I'm just going to draw a nice little line. For speed, I'm not actually going to write all the information down. I've also drawn points on here. This is the under bust. This is the waist. And this is the upper hips. The neckline, I've decided quite arbitrarily to be 20 centimetres down, which is here, as a little plus. So I'm just going to draw from the inner shoulder seam to the neckline. I want it to be a nice bit of a curve. If it doesn't look symmetrical, don't worry about it, because I have a plan about that. I'll just make the shoulder seams. Naturally, with all of your measurements, you've allowed for the 1 centimetre seam line wherever there's a seam. And if it's 0.4 millimetre latex, I wouldn't really worry about the elasticity for this just yet. So now I'm going to join the bust. If you actually, just about starting off, if you notice on any sleeves, on any garments, they always come in a little bit. So rather than just have a straight line, that would leave a little bit of latex loose, just come in a little bit and it'll tidy it up, tidy it and tighten it to your actual chest. And right, just for ease of my drawing, I'm just going to come here, hopefully you can see it. You can use a ruler to join the different points together, but it's much nicer to do it freehand because you get more of a natural curve as is your body. And even if it doesn't go over the points exactly, still go with a natural curve because it's going to be a better fit. So I think I'll just take a little bit more off of here, just because from experience I just feel that's going to be better. I haven't drawn in this line because I want my front panel to be symmetrical. So I'm simply going to fold the pattern in half. And then when I cut out the pattern, naturally moves away from itself, then when I unfold it, it will be symmetrical, which will be perfect. Naturally, to save a little bit of time, I've already done that. So here we have our front panel and our back panel. So just line them up. Excuse me. So these are upper hips, and I've made a little mark where the waistline is and also the bust line. So the waistline and the bust line, I'm very glad to say, are in line with each other. If they were out of kilter, then you would know there was something wrong with the pattern, because when we come to stick the seams together, we're going to use them as guidelines. Also, before we start, I just want to make sure that the top seam, the shoulder seams, there's nothing wrong with them, and I'm also very happy to say they fit perfectly as well. So now we just have to put them onto some latex. Sorry, the mic sample must have got twisted. There we go. Right. So before I draw around my pattern, my front panel, I want to make sure I have these guidelines, so I'm going to put little notch marks in the actual pattern. You can use a hole punch just to make a little notch mark, so when you draw around you'll see that little divot effectively and use that as a guide. So naturally, I made one a little earlier. Sticking them together is obviously very straightforward, and this is basically what it should look like. When you lay it flat, the seams won't lie flat because they're 3D seams lying on a 2D surface. So when you wear it, you'll appreciate that because it means it won't squash your bust. So I'm going to ask my friend if she wouldn't mind wearing this, and then I'll show you a couple of tricks. For men, you just pop it on and it'll be perfect. Thank you to my friend for wearing the top. For men, it'll be perfect. For women, there will be a couple of good tips. If you ever want the outer bust seam to be a little bit tighter, all you have to do is shorten this seam. So for example, in this case, if it's 1 centimetre, you just take 1/2 centimetre off by the shoulder seam and 1/2 centimetre off by the bust line seam, which I'm going to do. just making a little mark here. Also for women, you will often have air pockets immediately under the bust line. So to get rid of them, you simply have to pull that under bust line towards the bust line, and that'll give a lot more shape and support. So if you go about 5 centimeters in, and then you need to pull it that way by about, in this case, it's about 1.5 centimeters. So having pulled it that way, I can see it's here. So I'm just going to join these 2 points together and then naturally continue to join them to the existing seam as soon as possible. Then I'm going to unpeel it and stick it back together again, not forgetting to add the reinforcers for the stress point. And then you'll look perfect. Thank you very much.